Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Cini, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and I want to thank you for your attention and your consideration. I also want to thank Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, as always, for providing this platform. Need to let you all know, if you're an expert in your field and you would like to reach a broader audience to teach them things that they don't know, build your reputation as an expert in your field, Talking Heads is a great way to do that. So go to usaglobaltv.com and look through the website, reach out to Dr. Jacqueline, and book a session. I think you'll really appreciate the effect it has. It certainly worked for me. So let's begin. I'm going to share my screen because probably yesterday was Columbus Day. And in honor of Columbus Day, I must talk with my hands. So at some point, speaking as an Italian American, or at least partly an Italian American, I'm going to have to gesture and talk with my hands, draw pictures. So we're going to use this whiteboard here from time to time. But before I do that, I want to tell a story. In fact, maybe what I'll do is take this down while I tell the story. I was in graduate school for social psychology, and it was a great experience. Vanderbilt University. I was there for a couple of years. And during that time, I learned a bunch of things, many of which I still remember. One in particular was a study of a subject called cognitive dissonance, which people use. They say that phrase all the time, but I don't think most people really understand what that means. And cognitive dissonance is a psychological effect of your belief systems and your realities being out of whack, being out of kilter with respect to each other. When you believe something to be true, but the facts in fact and objectively argue with that, then that creates a cognitive dissonance situation in your head. Often people resolve that cognitive dissonance by adjusting their beliefs rather than dealing with the facts. The way we feel about our work is in large measure dictated by how we judge that work. And I'll have to give you a couple of examples for that to make sense. Let's start with the classic example, which is what I learned in graduate school. And by the way, the reason why I'm hitting on cognitive dissonance here is because the topic that we were going to discuss today is how often, I mean, there's a weird statistic out there. If you're an owner of a business and you want to keep somebody that you think is a key employee, and your first instinct is to give them a bonus or give them a big bump in salary, what the research indicates is that in many, many, many cases, a significant percentage of cases, when people get an increase or a bonus that they believe was given to them strictly for the purpose of manipulating them, in other words, getting them to stay, that raises the probability they'll quit. I mean, this has been observed over and over again. If you've been a business owner for a while, you may have even observed it yourself. You take a disgruntled employee that you consider to be key, you know they're frustrated, you're worried that they're going to leave because they're frustrated. Rather than address the frustration, you just say to them, you know what, I'm going to give you more money. And for a week or two, they accept that and they seem like they're okay. But then 2 weeks later, they turn in their notice and they're gone. Often to a job that pays less than the job at your company that you're currently paying them more for. It's a weird psychological effect, and cognitive dissonance is at the bottom of it. So let me explain the research first. I was worried that we might not be able to go the full 30 minutes. I'm now comfortable that we'll be able to do that. Okay, here's how it works in social psychology in graduate school. You take a group of cheap labor, that's basically graduate students, because they're around and they're available and they volunteer. And you organize them into two groups. Now, both of these groups are going to be doing the same boring thing. Now, the researcher who did this in the 50s, who first discovered cognitive dissonance, a guy named Leon Festinger, Festinger. You can look this up. In his research, he organized participants into two groups. Both groups did the same thing. It was a pegboard, like a chessboard, with rows and columns, with holes, circular holes arranged like the squares on a checker or chessboard. And in each of these holes, there was a peg, a wooden peg slipped into the hole, and the wooden peg had a line on the top of it. And the assignment was, starting at the upper left of this pegboard, turn each peg a quarter of a turn, keep going left to right, top to bottom, and when you're finished, go back and do it again. So for an hour, two groups of graduate students did exactly the same thing. They turned these pegs one after another, left to right, clockwise, top to bottom, boring as all hell. One of the most boring things you can ask somebody to do. Just did it over and over and over again. And at the end of the hour, Leon paid one group $5, thanking them for their service, and paid the other group $50, thanking them for their service. Then, about a week or two later, they came back to both groups and they asked them how they felt about the work that they did participating in this experiment. The group that only got paid $5 to do this intensely, agonizingly boring, skull-crushing thing all said that they felt like their participation was worthwhile, and they were thrilled to be participating in this research. They all had positive things to say about their participation in the program. The other group, the group that got paid $50 instead of $5 to do the same thing, they all pretty much universally said, most boring thing I've ever done, don't get the point of it at all. Thanks for the $50. What I did was not worth $50. They took the money and basically they ran. Now, what do we learn from this? What we learn from this is the fundamental principle that most volunteer organizations have experienced. Now, if you've ever run a not-for-profit and you've worked with volunteers, many not-for-profits will work with volunteers that they identify as key contributors. And what they'll do for those key contributors is put them on staff and start paying them. What nonprofits have seen over and over and over again is that when you shift volunteers from working as volunteers to working as paid employees, if you don't accompany that with a few things, if all it is the money, you get a really high probability that they'll quit. They'll leave. I had an employee who worked for my recruiting company, actually a long-standing employee, been with me for 10 or 15 years. At the end of one of the years that he was with me, I gave him a pretty big bonus because we had a pretty good year and he played a role in that. After he got his bonus, he quit. I mean, really, so I've seen it myself. Also have a friend, and this one blew me away. A close friend of mine was an HR director for a very, very, very well-known, very high-profile financial institution. Won't name names. But financial institution ran on technology, and they had a key employee inside the company who was their CIO or CTO, somebody who was pretty highly placed in the IT business inside the company, and was expressing some frustrations at work, wasn't all that happy with the work. So my HR director friend went to the CEO, that was his direct up report, went to the CEO and said, I think we might lose so-and-so. And the boss said, well, how much did we pay him? And because he didn't know. And they paid him a lot of money. But from the point of view of this financial institution, it was really not a lot of money. And if you knew how much the CEO made, you'd know that it was absolutely not a lot of money. So the CEO looked at my friend, the HR director, and said, well, let's just pay him more. So the HR director said, well, the salary scales don't allow it. And CEO said, who cares about the salary scales? You say this guy's a key employee and we don't want to lose this person. What do we have to pay him to keep him happy, to keep him in the fold? Finally, the CEO just said, look, double the salary. Now, we're talking about a significant high six-figure salary to begin with, that when it was doubled, turned out to be a low seven-figure salary. This guy made a lot of money. His salary went way up. And, you know, you'd figure, especially at financial institutions, and this is a bias I think that sales organizations and finance organizations have. They believe that people are working for the money and the money is all that matters. And if you just give people more money, that'll make them happy. Research has borne out again and again and again the exact polar opposite of that, just letting you know. Giving people more money does not make them happy. This example, I think, really, really proves that point. They doubled this guy's salary, and within a month, he went to work for a company that paid him half of his original salary. He took a huge pay cut. Now, what's going on here? People have complicated motivations when it comes to work. And I'm going to start drawing some pictures here. There are a couple of points I want to try to make because I think they're really important points. People have very complex psychological issues when it comes to feeling valued and feeling respected at work, when it comes to them being motivated by the work they do, them being motivated by the workplace they operate in. This has been studied over and over and over again, and it's summarized in a book called Drive that was written by an author named Daniel Pink. So if you Google Daniel Pink, you'll find the book Drive, and inside that book Drive, you'll find a lot of discussion of what it takes to make people high performers. And a lot of research went into writing that book, and Daniel Pink does a really good job summarizing it by identifying three things. There are three things that an employee needs to feel in order to feel like they're fulfilled and happy. Number one, they need to feel as though they have autonomy. Number one, in order for an employee to feel fulfilled at work, their number one requirement, the number one requirement is that they be able to work in relative freedom. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have to follow the rules or that they don't have guardrails to operate in. I mean, all companies have those. But in order for an employee to feel fulfilled, they need to feel like they're in the driver's seat of their lives, not somebody else. The way you kill autonomy is with micromanagement, by the way. So when we say that people don't quit companies, they quit bosses, the number one mistake that an immature boss or an incompetent boss makes is micromanaging his or her employees, actually competing with them. When I had your job, this is how we did it. When I had your job, we could do this in half the time that you're taking to do it. That kind of micromanagement deprives an employee of autonomy and makes them want to quit. So autonomy is the feeling that if I'm working here, I'm working in freedom and I have the freedom to be me and I'm doing what needs to be done and not necessarily what I'm being told to do. Not about making my boss happy. It's about making the difference in the world that my company wants to make. That's autonomy. Number two, people need to feel as though from day to day, they're becoming better at what they do. They need to feel as though the experience they're gaining is benefiting them. They need to feel as though the training they're getting is actually teaching them skills that are of value that will make them better people, not just better employees. That's mastery. Mastery is the sense that as I work here, with the experience I'm gaining, I'm becoming more and more proficient and therefore more and more valuable, potentially valuable to other companies, not just to the company I'm in. Mastery is the second element that motivates employees. If you're especially a professional services company, you provide mastery by offering mentoring programs, by encouraging people to become mentors to junior people in the company, by bringing in educational events, or by paying for college educations. Those kinds of programs, not just perks, but actual programs that are aimed at helping people become more proficient and feel better about themselves. That's developing mastery, and that's the second leg of the three-legged stool that employees feel they need to sit on. Otherwise, take away any one of the legs and they'll fall over. And here's the third leg. And this third leg is the trickiest one. Yes, absolutely. People need to feel as though they're trusted enough and believed in enough by their employees and that they fit in where they are so comfortably that they're allowed to act autonomously, to drive their own careers. That's number one. And number two, they need to feel as though they're respected enough and trusted enough to be encouraged to grow in their jobs, to become better at their jobs and better at their work, at the work they do, and that they're given the tools and the training and the opportunities that they need in order to ramp that process up for themselves. That's mastery. Third, this one is the tricky one. The third linchpin is purpose. And that one is the tricky one. In order for people to feel motivated at work, they need to feel as though the work they do makes a difference. Now, I run into this all the time because in the work that I do with this program that we've developed called ProFit, which is a team building experience. And you can learn more about that by going to pro-fit the number 4 teams.com. You'll find information describing the program there. ProFit is about helping teams find their purpose. We have a particular method that we follow to accomplish that, because we know that it doesn't make any difference what we do here unless we're also providing support for that third leg of the stool here. Now, autonomy and mastery are relatively straightforward. Trust each other, believe in each other, treat each other with generosity, give each other opportunities to learn. That's autonomy and mastery. This third element, this purpose element, is the trickier part. And I got to tell you, I hear all the time from clients that we work with, well, listen, we're just an accounting firm. We do accounting. Isn't that good enough? Isn't that enough of a purpose for my people? No, it isn't. And no, I'm not saying that the purpose you have to have is that you're going to be the first accountants on the moon, or that you're going to be the first accountants in Earth orbit, or that you're going to be the first accountants to start your own religion. That's not what I'm talking about here. Accounting is a service that you provide clients. Clients need that service, look for that service. Oh, it's not just accounting, it's also financial services. When you're in the financial services business, your ultimate goal isn't about managing your client's money. That's a tool. Your ultimate goal is about managing your clients' lives, or helping them to manage their own lives in more effective ways. That is purpose. Purpose is, what is the larger purpose that we serve by doing the jobs we do? Now, I think in earlier Talking Heads, I talked about a gentleman who comes by my house twice a year. I have a septic field in the back. For those of you who don't know where that is, if you don't have a sewer system and you've got a lot that's big enough, a septic field is where it all goes after you flush. And every now and then that septic field has to be cleaned out. And I've got a guy who comes twice a year and does that for me, charges me money. I pay him the money happily. This guy, when he comes to do this, these people, it's not just him, he's got a crew. These people eat, sleep, breathe, love what they do. Now, it's not something I could do at all. It's something they do. Not only do they do it well, but they do it with a kind of an energy, with a love, and they often identify things that need to be dealt with before I call them and tell them I've got a problem. And it's always a pleasure to welcome them to the house, and it's always a pleasure to watch them work. And they always say thank you. And it's so clear to me that their purpose isn't just to clean out my septic field, which is pretty disgusting. Their purpose is to make me a happy customer, and they're totally committed to that in everything they do. And that means that if somebody were to come along and say they do it for me for free for a year, I wouldn't hire them. I'd rather pay these guys the money that I'm paying them than get it done for free by somebody else. Even though the work might be equally competent, I'd rather pay these guys because honestly, there's more to the value of the service than just the dollar amount that's associated with it. Back to cognitive dissonance. My belief system is, if I work with these people, that will make me happier. They have my best interests at heart. They're really committed to making me a happy customer. Therefore, I ain't switching. I'm not shopping. I'm going to keep working with them. That sense of purpose is something any company can accomplish. Any company can have that sense of purpose. What you need, generally from the top down inside of an organization, is some kind of a, let's say, a altruistic sense of what it is this company is about and how this company changes people's lives, not just manage their money or patch up their bruises and cuts or creates logos for them. Purpose is about changing somebody's life. Every company, no matter what their actual job content, every company can solve the purpose problem. We have a particular angle on that that you might find instructive. So really quickly before we wrap up this Talking Heads, I'll teach it to you. A lot of people think that you solve the purpose problem with a mission statement, or as we discussed, I think in an earlier Talking Heads, that you solve it with a values exercise. What are our core values? A lot of people think that. And a lot of people approach it exactly that way. And it's become almost a trope. People just keep approaching the problem, write mission statements. What are our core values? They just keep doing these things over and over again because they're doing it. By doing it over and over again, it seems like something that everybody needs to do. What we found is that you write those values down, you hang them on a frame in a frame somewhere, and they collect dust and they're ignored, and people become eye blind to them after a while because they're there all the time. And because they're never brought to life, they're never made part of the living, breathing culture of the company. Oh, here's what we do instead. Instead of asking a company, what are your core values or what matters to you? We ask the members of a leadership team, or actually, if the company's small enough, we'll ask everybody in the company, who are we when we're doing our best work on our best day to keep all the promises we make and achieve all the goals we set for ourselves? If this organization, if this septic tank company or this accounting firm were a person that I could meet at a party, a human being, one human being, all the people, all the tools, all the methodologies it follows, all the proficiency it possesses. If that organization were a single person that I could meet at a party, what would that person be like? Now, in this exercise, I don't care whether you own the company or you mop the floors and answer the phones. I don't care if you've been with the company for 30 years or you just started yesterday. What we're really doing here is drawing a picture of an entity from our own individual points of view. To put everybody in a room, get a blackboard or a whiteboard set up, and then just ask people to give you words. What are words that describe this person? Things that this person does, by the way, not just things this person is. I don't want to hear trustworthy, honest. Those things don't make a difference. I want to hear things like, when the phone rings, this person picks it up. I want to hear phrases like, whenever I see this person, they're always wearing a suit and tie. For some companies, that might be really critical. Whenever I see this person, they're always wearing clean scrubs. In healthcare, that might be very important. So I want to know what the hallmark behaviors are of this person that I'm meeting at this party that cue me, that tell me as I meet them and as I talk to them, how is it that they make this difference in the world as a member of the organization they serve? Those hallmark behaviors. You write all that down. What you end up with is an inventory, a rules of the road inventory. The practices that people pursue, the rules they follow, the best practices. And we talk about this all the time. You want best practices? People have them. Just go get them. You know, what are the best practices around here? Things that you see other people doing that really, when you catch people doing things right, what is it they're doing? Let's write that down. When you catch people doing things wrong, by the way, if you do see any of that, let's write that down too and put it on the list of things that we won't do. You end up with a code of conduct that doesn't just talk about the things that you consider to be valuable and virtuous, but actually shows you how you revere those values and virtues in the day-to-day activities that you engage in as you do your work. How you treat each other, how you treat your clients, how you manage up or manage down in the company, how you hold each other accountable, how you hold yourself accountable, all those behaviors, how you listen to other people when they express themselves, all those behaviors get captured in this process because what we're doing is taking this role model, key element of Profit and the way it works. We start with a role model that everybody sees when they imagine their team as though it were a single person doing its best work on its best day. We take that role model and through its words and actions and through its behaviors and through the way it wears and the way the clothing it wears and the way it speaks and the email it writes, we take everything this person does that manifests who it is, who this role model is. We make an inventory of all that and then we present it out to everybody and say, okay, everybody, working separately, what 2 or 3 things about yourself are you learning you can do differently now that you've gotten to know the role model who represents the best of all of us? That is purpose. Purpose is a role model for an organization that's brought to life, set out into the world to make the difference that it makes. And the really, really cool thing about this is that when your organization has a purpose, you don't need leaders. Everybody becomes a leader. leadership emerges in everybody within the organization. Purpose tells me what the right thing is to do. And when I know what the right thing is to do, no matter who I am, no matter where I am in the company, I will do the right thing autonomously. And because doing the right thing makes me better at what I do. That makes me a happy employee. And that's how all those elements tie together. So thank you for paying attention to me as I've gone through this Talking Heads. It'll be a while, I think, before I'm back with another Talking Heads. But I really appreciate everybody's attention to the presentations I've made so far. And I hope you found this one of value. And definitely, if you think Talking Heads is a good platform for you, you should go to usaglobaltv.com, learn more about that. If you want to get a hold of me, 212-480-3730 is my phone number. You can get me by email at al.cini@getbcat.com. So thank you all very much.